Hello, friends. I'm Leigh Brown. This is Crazy Shit in Real Estate, and it's not often I get to have a fellow Seminole on the show. So go Knowles. We have Brian O'Neill with us today to help you think about some options for helping neighbors as the real estate market eventually changes. So this is an interesting take on some things. Might be a SWAT team tossed in here too. So make sure you enjoy the conversation, and I'll see you on the other side.
Hi, Leigh.
Hey, Brian, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Thank you for being willing to come on the show here.
A pleasure to be on. Thanks for inviting me. Hope you're feeling better. We were supposed to do this, I think, a month ago when you had a running incident.
Yeah, that was the day. And it was the day before we were supposed to record. I bit the sidewalk, cracked this tooth, chipped this one, and this is still wiggly. But my face is all healed. It was kind of a wreck. There was no way I needed to have a recording of that for the long haul.
Yeah, understood. Glad you're okay. And yeah, you know, you run it. I run too. So sometimes those things happen, right?
It just aggravated me. It was the first time I ever face planted. I've fallen plenty. My knees are covered in scars, and you know, like this place on your heel of your hand is always a mess, but not my teeth. Oh well. But I will say I'd rather have broken teeth than a broken foot because I can still run with this.
Totally.
All right. So tell me about you and what you do in and around the real estate space. How did you get to know Chris Prefontaine? I love him. He's got great energy. So I'm so curious about all the interwoven pieces here.
Yeah. So Chris is my coach. I hired him as my mentor a few years ago. Before that, I was in corporate sales for 25 years. And, you know, his way of real estate really spoke to me because I had wanted to become an investor for a long time, right? Break out of my job. And I just really, I was very fearful. I was scared. You know, I was nervous to make mistakes. And then also I had this job, right? I had this really good job that I was scared to leave because I had built something up over the last, 25 years. And Chris really kind of helped me get out of that mindset. And then I just liked his model, and I like helping the people that I help. Like, not everybody fits in the conventional box, as you know. So I like giving people alternatives to sell their home and to buy their home. That's really what gets me to the desk in the morning. I had personal experience on both sides of it. You know, as a purchaser of a home, I struggled with credit when I was younger because nobody taught me, or, they don't teach you all that stuff. Right. And that followed me around for a bit. And then on the sales side, I sold a home where, I thought I was going to get $40,000 or $50,000 worth of equity. I got like $4,000 at the end, and I take ownership of that, but it was mainly because I wasn't educated and I aligned myself with the wrong people. And, now I'm dedicated to just making sure that everyone understands that there are options. There are alternatives to do this. There's not only one way.
Well, I think that's one of the overriding themes in the podcast over the 6 years I've been doing it is that you say real estate, and most people think of either the house they grew up in or that little salt box house with a white picket fence and that quintessential American dream. But real estate is a million different products, a million different pathways. And unfortunately, a lot of people that are professionals in the space, whether it's on the wholesale side, the retail side, the investor side, they get really tunnel vision into their niche. And so if somebody that they encounter doesn't fit their niche, they blow them off and then forget that that person might just be a 30-minute conversation away from another pathway that works better for them. And I frankly think that's the coolest thing about real estate. And I was talking to an agent about this last week, I guess, who's highly bored with what they're doing in real estate because they've been doing it for a long time. They're very good at it. I said, great. Now's the time to go learn multifamily investing. Go learn some land skills. There's so many different spaces you can go into because boredom sets in with successful people. And when you're bored, you're not going to be creative. And Chris is definitely one of the guys who's been in a lot of different angles of real estate, but he's figured out how to really help the anchor set for a lot of people. And I love that. And especially love your honesty about how your credit got hit and you didn't even know about it, which we do our whole younger generation a massive disservice not educating them on how much power the credit bureaus have over their lives. Because let's also call that what it is. It is not just about the score. It's about those unnamed, unelected bureaus are out there setting your financial future. That's kind of a hot mess.
Hot mess. I agree. And I could talk for a long time on that. Unfortunately, when they ship you the credit card when you're 19 years old in college, it doesn't come with a manual on how to manage it. It just says, here you go.
I was in the quad at Florida State, and they had that little booth set up. Do you remember the little tables they used to set up in the quad? Cassette tapes and albums and credit cards. I bought a cassette tape, and then I went and got a credit card. What were they thinking? I had no income except for my referee money.
Well, of course not. And by the way, I'm an FSU alum too. So
I lived in Landis Hall. Where did you live?
I lived in Smith Hall before they knocked it down.
Oh, they got knocked down?
Yeah, recently. I was there in the early 90s. So
I was there too. That was when I was there.
I went and I graduated from high school in 92. So I was there from 92 to 97.
We were there at the same time. It's highly possible that I was at parties in Smith Hall because some of my really good friends were over there. Since I was over in the honors dorm, I had to go to parties elsewhere.
Yeah. No, we were Smith, Sally, and then I forget the one that was like catty corner to that one. But it's crazy. Yeah.
Okay, carry on.
I've got my helmet right up here. You can see it.
Oh, yeah. You see, but that's the good era of Bobby Bowden and Mike Martin, because I was baseball girl. I was I was umpiring for the frat leagues. That was
really
hustle.
Crazy. Small world.
Fraternity?
I'm sorry?
You a fraternity kid?
I wasn't. I had a lot of friends who were ATO, but I never rushed. I just hung out with the ATO boys.
That was a lot of money. So you saved your parents some money that way. So, okay. So there you go, listeners and viewers. I hope you enjoyed this side jaunt down memory lane in Tallahassee, which we could talk for hours about what it used to look like. But if you go back to Tallahassee, it looks nothing like it did then.
Not at all. Student
housing is actually, we should probably have a conversation on a show sometime about student housing, because the stuff I lived in had roaches and popcorn ceilings, and it was disgusting. And now they've got granite and stainless steel and floor to ceiling glass, and young people are spoiled now.
Totally. There was no air conditioning in my dorm.
No, there was not. And your dorm that's why the parties were kind of wild over there, because you had to drink. I mean, excuse me, we drank when we were over 21. We were not.
Correct. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. So anyway, back to learning how to invest with Chris. You lost all that money. So what changed for you when you have a succession of what the world might call failures, but those of us that are smart enough will say that's a learning experience that you don't want to repeat. So after you make it through those couple of steps, what changed for you? Was it the market? Was it your location? Was it an educational insight? What was the wake-up moment besides, I don't want to be broke forever?
Correct. So number one, I took ownership of everything. Like for a long time, I blamed everybody else except for me. And so that was a big step for me, as I took ownership of the fact that, like, hey, I played a role in this. I can't just keep playing the victim forever and ever. Like, I lost that money for a reason, or I mismanaged my credit for a reason. So I had to take ownership of that. And once I did, things started to really change for me. And I was able to, break out of my W-2 prison, if you will, that I had wanted to for so long. And those experiences actually that I had when I was younger, and recently, the other experience that I mentioned where I lost all that equity wasn't too long ago, 6-7 years ago. That has now, I knew at that time, I'm like, there's got to be a different way to do this, right? There's got to be another alternative. Like, there's other people like me that have gone through a similar experience. Now I can help them. Like, I can talk to them. I can give them some alternatives on how to sell their house if they're upside down, or if they're behind on their payments, or if, they had a significant life event, like they're going through a divorce. I mean, I hear crazy stories every day when I talk to sellers and buyers too. Crazy stuff.
Right now, I mean, we're coming to the other side of the worst set of government policies ever, these lockdowns. And we're going to see a lot of people that don't understand what's happening because they bought into the forbearance plan that looked like they were just being given free space, but now they've actually gotten out of the habit of making payments, but their houses have equity, but the bank wants to get paid at some point. So what you're creating in the way of conversations, I think, is about to be the most valuable skill you can possibly have in 2022 and beyond.
I would agree. This is real money that people owe, and eventually it's gonna rear its ugly head, unfortunately. And it's important for individuals and families to know that there's other alternatives, right? And you don't just have to. I talk to a lot of sellers who are just ready to cash it in, like they're just ready to give up. I'll take the 7-year credit hit or whatever it is, depending if you go short sale or foreclosure, and they're okay with it. And and then I start talking to them about like, hey, we can do something on a lease option or seller financing. There's other ways for you to get to stave this off. And they just like, wow, I didn't know you could do that. And
if somebody called you right now and said, Brian, I'm 6 months behind on my mortgage, the bank's sending me letters, they're throwing their hands up, what's the first question you'd ask them? How do you get them to be open to you suggesting things? Because we both know that when people are in distress, they definitely throw walls up and they shut it down. But a guy like you is genuinely trying to bring some solutions. How do you get them to the point of hearing you?
And that's a great point you bring up because a lot of folks are calling them for their own advancement, unfortunately, right? And I always like to have a conversation with the seller about like, hey, what's your situation? Like when you're talking, and you know this because you're talking to sellers as well, you have to listen, right? You have to uncover what their motivation is, what their problem is. And if I get that situation, which I do a lot, I normally just tell them, or I'll say, hey, look, you have another alternative. You don't have to cash it in. And this is how it could look for you. And then once you gain that trust and the seller understands that you're somebody they can rely on and trust, and like, hey, I've been down that road too. Like I haven't been that behind on payments, but I've been in distress. You can offer a solution like, hey, you don't have to give up and quit. You can trust the right person, which is me, or a lot of people who do what I do can be trusted. And then it's just, okay, let's gather your details. Let's see if we can help you. I'm not going to waste your time. I had a gentleman who was $25,000 behind on his payments. I spoke to his bank. I spoke to his foreclosure attorney and got the information that he needed so that he could move on, right? He wanted to move. He wanted to relocate. And he trusted me enough to get on the phone with his bank and say, hey, the bank said, hey, if you make up these payments, it's business as usual. And then the foreclosure attorney said the same thing. So there are options, there are alternatives. You just have to put the seller's needs first.
So how do you get compensated in a situation like that? Because obviously you've got a family to feed as well, and solving somebody else's problems is totally a feel good for the community. Is there a pathway to taking care of you and taking care of them?
There is. Now, I can't help every seller, and I'm not lost on that, right? But in a situation like that, where a family's that far behind, it's kind of cool how this can work out. So I would gain long-term ownership of that house, right? And the seller's okay with it because they were going to give the house back to the bank anyways. So number one, and I'm kind of helping the bank out too, by catching them up. I reinstate the loan, I pay the mortgage payments, and now I get to go turn around and help a family who needs a house but can't necessarily buy one right now for a myriad of reasons. People, again, like me, who mismanaged their credit when they were younger, or maybe they had a significant life event like a divorce. I mean, divorce wrecks your credit.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's not necessarily your fault. I hear crazy stories, Leigh. I mean, people who have, had their parents open up credit cards in their names when they were kids, identity theft. Like how are they any less deserving of buying a home than someone who, hasn't had that happen to them?
Well, and I will say that's one of the perks of looking at somebody's full credit report versus just looking at the score. Because if you see that somebody was fine, boom, a lot of bad incidents and they started to come back, you can tell what happened. If they were going through a divorce and the other person got spiteful, well, that can wreck them in a minute when they were on target. And the same thing for job loss. If somebody was on target, they lost the job and everything fell off, and then they got a job and it started to come back, the score doesn't come back, but the good disciplines do. And so that tells a different story. And I've discovered that as a landlord, I'd rather know why the score dipped than look at just that absolute number, because the credit bureaus have too much power. All right. So if you're taking over that, I can't say that enough. If you're taking over that note, though, are you doing an assumable mortgage, or how does that work if they had a loan that was not assumable? Because in the past decade, we haven't seen assumable mortgages, because why would any bank do that at 2.5% interest? Now that rates are rising, that is going to change, of course. But talk to me about some of those logistics, because our realtor professionals that are listening are probably thinking, how do I get into this space? And the consumer's thinking, how do I ask better questions if somebody knocks on my door? We want them to know, how do they tell the good guys from the scam artists? Because there's scammers out there.
Absolutely 100%. And it's unfortunate. But what we would essentially do is we don't assume the loan. There's no need to do that. The loan's already in place. I don't believe in getting a bank loan to pay off their distressed bank loan. That just doesn't make a lot of sense. It's already in place. I take over the payments. So in that scenario that I mentioned with the seller who's behind, we catch him up, we make his payments. We'll use a servicing company to make the payments. And then again, it's business as usual. He's actually getting his credit on the mend as a result of doing that, because he still has the deed in his name in most cases, because we'll typically do like a contract for deed. Subject to transactions are not as popular as they once were, just because of the whole deed transfer thing. But you can do a land contract or contract for deed. It depends on what state you're in. They call it something different. But you're making the payments, right? You're making good on the agreement, and the seller has security because they have the title.
So the seller pays you, but you pay the bank, thereby ensuring that the bank gets paid.
I pay the bank direct. We use a service company to pay the mortgage direct, and the bank isn't concerned about that. They don't care. They just want to collect their payments and their interest. So the seller is out of it. They don't have to worry about it. Now, they certainly check to make sure that their payments are getting made. But when you're dealing with, and the reason for that is the logistics of it, Leigh. If I have a buyer in the home that I have a fiduciary responsibility, who I'm helping them get a bank loan within a 2 or a 3 year period, I want to make sure that loan's getting paid. So if I pay the seller may not necessarily do what they're supposed to do with it. So I pay direct.
So the seller still has the deed, could sell the house. What happens if they sell the house while you're making payments? Is there an agreement as to what happens to the proceeds? Because a lot of people right now may be behind on payments, but because of the market run, they've got equity that they may want to tap into. This episode is sponsored by Follow Up Boss, one of the leading CRMs, client relationship managers for residential real estate. Tons of top producing agents and some of the fastest growing teams out there are using Follow Up Boss to increase lead conversion, eliminate busy work that you're not doing anyway, and frankly, deliver a higher class experience in real estate to everybody who chooses you as their realtor of choice. Follow Up Boss is going to take the names and phone numbers and also help you know what to do next, so you can maintain these relationships with your neighbors, because that's what this is about. Real estate is not about serving just prospects and clients. It's about taking great care of your neighbors' needs in real estate. Truly, it's going to change your business when you start paying better attention to people. They don't have to know you use Follow Up Boss, but they'll totally understand that they are being heard by you. And frankly, because you're my people and we made an ask for you, Follow Up Boss said, yes, you get double the free trial. That's actually enough time to log in, put some pieces in it, and watch it change your business as it has for so many realtors and teams nationwide. Again, go to followupboss.com/crazy to start your free trial today.
Good question. So we make sure that our agreements are recorded. We'll normally file with the county a memorandum of real estate. It depends on where you are on how this is done, but my agreements get recorded. If a contract for deed, you record that agreement. So when you do a title search, if they were going to refi or sell, that would show up. That would prevent any type of sale or refinance.
Perfect. So it sounds more complicated than it is, but really is an elegant solution to helping people keep the kids in the schools they're used to, keep their home, and not have to go out into this crazy market where they might not be able to afford a replacement. Because I think that's where the conversation should be with professionals who are talking to homeowners. It's in their best interest to figure it out, because where are they going to go? Rents are through the roof, house prices are through the roof, and keeping them put benefits all the parties in a scenario like this. Now, of course, we're on crazy shit in real estate. My viewers and listeners are looking for a story that they can say, what? And so I'd love to know, Brian, what you have encountered in all of your different venues of real estate life.
Goodness, I have so many stories, but I think the one that stands out the most is probably my second house that I took under agreement. I helped a seller relocate down south. They didn't want the Chicago winters anymore, and I don't blame them. They're unpleasant, and so they moved. Right, so I took control of the property, and I'm making the payments, and I have a buyer in the house. Right, I have someone I'm helping get a loan within a couple of years. Well, I'm sitting. We were at the house, and the seller texts me, and he says, "Hey, the SWAT team's at the house. The neighbor just called me." Right, and the seller is, we built a good rapport, so he was just letting me know because the neighbor had queued him up. SWAT team's at the house. I'm like, oh my goodness, what is going on? So my wife knew the sergeant for the particular city. She went to high school with him. Because we're like trying to check the scanners and trying to figure out what happened. The house is like 25 minutes away. And she called the sergeant, her friend. And she said, and he said, yeah, we're at the house. And he's sending me pictures, by the way. The seller had sent me a bunch of pictures, and there was a domestic situation at the house. And, they had called it actually a hostage situation as well. And I'm literally freaking out. I'm thinking the house is getting destroyed. It's going to cost me tens of thousands of dollars to get the house fixed. And eventually it died down, and they ended up arresting one of the family members, not the buyer that was in the house. He was okay. He didn't, because again, the police are involved, the SWAT team's there, like the whole block is blocked off. And it was good that she knew the sergeant, because we were able to like kind of get the back door, the back. He's like, oh, the house is destroyed. There's blood everywhere. They punched holes in the wall. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is just, crazy. Right. And the situation resolved itself. There wasn't that much damage to the house. Again, you mentioned you're a landlord. I mean, people have different views of what a wrecked house is, right? So it was.
You've owned rental properties. I don't think you can envision really what it looks like.
I mean, it was just a matter of mopping the floor, honestly, and fixing a hole in the wall. It wasn't that big of a deal, but it was the fact that the seller had reached out to me, right? And he was fine with it. I told him, I mentioned the story. I told him exactly what happened. He's like, okay, I just wanted to let you know. But that was definitely an interesting Saturday for sure.
Well, I mean, of course, the seller was fine with it. He wasn't in the house. He's out of town going, whew, glad that's not me.
Not me, and I'm not responsible for it, because my agreement says I'm responsible for everything. He was just, tipping me off and said, hey, good luck with this.
Do you know what though, Brian? It's a good reason to be friends with your neighbors, because it was the neighbors that alerted him so he could alert you, so that your wife could utilize her own back channels. And I think a lot of people nowadays, they get home, they go in the garage, they close the garage door, close all the blinds. And then the next day, they go out of the house, the blinds are still closed, they close the garage door, they leave. They don't interact with their neighbors in a meaningful enough way that that person would let you know. And I think we'd all want to know if the SWAT team's at our house, because it's going to be on TikTok, and you'd rather see it from your neighbor before you see it on TikTok.
I'm not on TikTok. I wasn't at the time, but I'm sure it was somewhere. Somebody had put it on. But yeah, and they later admitted that the SWAT might have been a little overkill. But again, it was the whole like hostage thing that brought that out there. But yeah, it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, you should stay off TikTok. It's not worth getting on, because you're also not 15. So yeah. Right. So Brian, if somebody wants to reach out to you and find out more about what you're doing in this space and how they can connect with you and learn from you, what is the best pathway for them to find you?
Yeah, the best pathway is to go to my website. It's www.bkwpropertysolutions.com. We also wrote a handbook because like all these experiences that I discussed about buying and selling and the options. So if you go to that website, bkwpropertysolutions.com/handbook, it's free, grab it. And, hopefully it'll help you because again, we're firm believers that you should be aware of all of your options.
And what I can say is, first of all, thank you for free stuff. And second of all, y'all go download that, because even though the real estate market, as of this recording in April of 2022, is still wildly increasing, real estate markets are living, breathing things, and sometimes they get on life support. So the sooner you can have solutions in your back pocket for all of your neighbors, the more sustainable your career will be. So thank you for coming on the show, Brian, and sharing for us a lot of the wonky details about what you're doing, because I do think it's going to be an opportunity to help our neighbors going forward.
Thanks, Leigh, for having me, and go Seminoles.
Woo, go Noles. All right, leave some love in the comments. And if you're a Gator fan, remember Gainesville is south till you smell it and east till you step in it. So only good things about Florida State in the comments. Subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and make sure that you come back and visit us again here on Crazy Shit. See you next time. So if you found value in this episode, please like and subscribe to this channel, turn on the bell, and catch another amazing episode by clicking above. Crazy Shit in Real Estate is also available on all of your normal podcast apps. So if that's where you like to hang out, go find me, click subscribe, and most importantly, leave me a review that says you think I'm awesome, my guests are awesome, or this content is just exactly what you were looking for. And then, by the way, if there's something you need, you want to learn about something, you can comment below anytime. You can also send me a direct message if you need to remain anonymous. No judgment. But anyway, I'll only judge if you forget to subscribe and click. I'll see you next time.